Walsh Donnelly is a multi-award winning writer of fiction, poetry and non-fiction. She has been described by the Irish poet Kevin Higgins as a poet of exceptional bravery, a pretty sensational original voice. And he also goes on to say that I hope the poetry world doesn't tame her, though no doubt it will try. Anne was shortlisted for the 2019 Hennessy Literary Award for her poetry. She is winner of the OT Fiction Slam in 2018, winner of the Blue Nib Chapbook competition, shortlisted for both the Fish International Writers' Prize and the RT1 Francis McManus competition. She has published 2 books so far, a poetry collection entitled The Woman with an Owl Tattoo, and a short story collection entitled Demise of the Undertaker's Wife. Welcome, Anne.
Thank you. Thanks for having me, Derville.
So, you are sitting in your home in Mayo in Ireland at the moment.
That's right, yeah. The west of Ireland.
Yeah. Lockdown.
Lockdown, yeah. It's great to talk to people. I haven't talked to anybody all day. So, yeah. So, yeah, it's weird. But anyway, it is what it is, as I say.
Yeah. Just get on with it.
That's it.
What else can you do? Okay, well, I suppose, Anne, we've already had a chat, and we'll go back over some of the things that maybe we touched upon, but you came to writing later in life, and I was wondering, how did that all come about for you?
I kind of, most of the time when I started, I was writing short stories, a few short plays. I didn't write poetry really at all. And then I just started sending out the stories to place, and a few of them got published. And it kind of took off from there. And I didn't really write poetry again till 3 years ago now. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Up to that, it was short stories.
I suppose in terms of your writing, what genre do you write? Is it memoir or fiction, or how would you describe, where would you place your work?
Jack of all trades and master of none. I hope I'm not speaking too quickly, because I know the Irish accent sometimes can be hard to understand. So if I'm speaking too quickly, just, let me know. Anyway.
They're fine.
Oh, grand, so fine. So, because like you're Irish, so you understand, but they might understand. So yeah, what do I write? Everything. I write fiction. I write short stories. I write plays. I write non-fiction. I write poetry. The latest thing I'm doing now is, didn't actually mention this to you yesterday, is I'm experimenting with poetry and prose in the same piece. I call it hybrid writing, because it's a mixture of poetry and prose. There's a good book by, what's his name, Max Porter, Grief is a Thing with Feathers. I don't know if you've read it, but that's kind of that. It's like a verse novel. It's a story, but it's kind of using prose and poetry in the same book. Mm-hmm. So that's what I'm experimenting with at the moment, is what I call verse novel or hybrid work. It's just messing around. So I do everything like I do. It just depends on, at the moment, I suppose, poetry is featuring, plays are featuring, and then, as I said, this mixture of the two. I'm not writing as short stories really at the moment, and also a bit non-fiction. It just kind of depends on what comes, and then it's like, okay, this idea is coming. So is this going to be a poem, or what is it? What form is it going to take? Mm-hmm. And that just, it usually just kind of sometimes I write stuff and start off as a poem and it ends up as a short story or a short play or whatever. Just
go with it.
Just go with it, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And you mentioned about your writing that it's your playground, and you say,
that's right, yeah.
I experiment, take risks, run wild on the page. So yeah. For someone that goes with the flow, how do you run wild? How do you take risks, do you think?
Oh God. Well, the thing is, like, I'm not actually a go with the flow person in real life. I am when it comes to writing, but not in ordinary life. I don't know. It's just like you kind of tap. It's very hard to explain. It's a bit of a mystery, really. It just, it's not a case of you kind of sit down and think, well, I'm going to write a really shocking poem about sex or whatever today, or I'm going to write a really funny poem about whatever. It doesn't happen like that. It's just something comes to you, and you just go with it. And sometimes it's a character, so it might be a short story or whatever. And it's just like tuning. It's like as if you're tuning into a frequency, a radio station, or a frequency. You're just tuning into that, and then when you tune in, it just comes. And I don't think about. I just write. I don't kind of censor it or kind of think, God, this is really daring or whatever else, or I just write. So it's yeah. I just kind of mess around, I suppose, and just whatever's inside comes out. And like, to be honest, I don't really see. Some people tell me my writing is brave and courageous and all that. I don't really see that to be myself. I just write whatever's there. And someone said to me, because I'm so close to it, I don't see, that it possibly is brave, it possibly is risky or whatever else, because I'm just too close. I don't see that. It's just whatever you tune into, whatever's there. It's either in your head or it's in your heart, and then you just let it out. So yeah.
Nice. Either in your head or your heart. Okay, well,
Yeah.
well, I think we need to hear some of this work. If you're happy to show your wares.
Yeah.
Is there a particular poem that you'd like to read first?
Do you want me to do the coming out one? Some of the coming out poems?
Yeah. Sounds good. Yeah.
In the, just put there, you see the chapbooks. It's a small poetry collection, and basically this collection is it's a reflection on my journey from the ending of my marriage to coming out in midlife, and it's been called a poetic memoir because it is pretty much my kind of like a 2 to 3 year period in my life, the journey. So yeah, it's really my kind of my journey. And some of the poems in it are kind of fiction, but it's not the facts. It's more just they're conveying an emotional truth. But in it, I have a series of poems which basically capture the essence of conversations I had with those who were closest to me. In other words, my parents, my 2 children, myself, my therapist. So I have these spread through the book. So I'm going to read, the first one I'm going to read is, I wonder, should I read the son one or the therapist one? Will I read the coming out to my therapist first? Yeah, or will I read the son one first? She can't remember.
No, I can. Go with the therapist. As the intro.
Yeah, because it's a good introduction. Because it shows where it kind of shows the start of the journey, and then we continue on. So so here it is, coming out to my therapist. Okay, I'm attracted to women, but I'm not gay. She raises her glass, takes a sip, and asks, are straight women attracted to other women? It's just a phase I'm going through. It'll pass. She shifts in her seat, leans forward. Have you ever heard of internalized homophobia? I grip the arms of my chair. I'm not anti-gay, and I'm not one of them either.
Dun, dun, dun.
So as you can see, like that last line, like I'm not anti-gay, and I'm not one of them either. So like,
so this is how you were feeling at that time.
Exactly. Yeah. I had a lot of internalized homophobia, and sometimes I think I still do, not a lot, but that's kind of one that's at the beginning of the book, really, because it's kind of the start of the journey.
Yeah.
So do you want me to read the one coming out to my son?
Yeah. Well, then you came around to the idea.
I came around to the idea, and came around to the idea, and met someone on a dating website, and as you do. And then it was then the next hurdle was to tell my kids that I was gay. So anyway, this poem captures the essence of a longer conversation. So coming out to my son, "Ma'am, do you have a girlfriend?" he asks, piercing me with "don't lie to me" eyes. "Yes," I say. "Is she just a friend with benefits?" "No." "Is it just a phase you're going through?" "No." His acne cheek touches my forehead. His gangly arms wrap around my shoulders. Same as his toddler arms used to, but different. "Thank you," I whisper. "I was just fishing," he says. "You thought you'd hook a goldfish. Instead you caught a pike." "No," he says. "I caught a whale."
Bless him.
So yeah, he's dote. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
but yeah, I there's not enough writing. There's not like when I came out to myself and realized that I was gay, and I went looking for poetry and fiction and novels and whatever else about the gay experience. Very hard to find anything.
Yeah.
Now I'm kind of more familiar. I you know, there's lots of things popping up that. But then 2-3 years ago, I just wanted to read something about being gay, what it was like to be gay, what it was like to have sex with a woman, and I couldn't. There wasn't much stuff there, so that was probably one of the reasons why I wrote this thing was a book, because you know it's just contributing to the canon of gay literature,
Yeah.
and this is the kind of poetry I would have loved to have read when I was starting in my journey. You know, just to kind of go, oh yeah, that's now I know why I'm feeling like that, or you know, I can relate to that, and I'm like wandering off now in a tangent.
No, you're not. It's all good. It's like an amazing journey, and your openness is really coming through now. So, and that is a beautiful thing. I was going to say we'd love to hear another poem if you would
Sound.
grace us.
Do you want another conversation one, or do you want Coming Out to My Father? Do you want me to read that one?
Oh yeah, that's okay.
You like that one, do
Yeah,
you?
I do like that one, but I think, but it's very emotional. But we'll go with it, and then will you
Okay.
read another? Will you read Manana Heron after that?
Okay,
Yeah.
right. So yeah, get to the gritty stuff. So my dad he'll be 81 in May. He was 79 when I told him I was gay, and his reaction was just beautiful, because my dad, very quiet man, doesn't show his emotions, typical Irish father really. So his reaction was just so special because of the fact that he is so reserved and so quiet. Coming out to my father. "Did Ma'am tell you my news?" I say. He adjusts his hearing aid. "What? Did Ma'am tell you my news?" "No." "I'm seeing someone." "Oh, is it a man?" "No, a woman." He opens his newspaper, flicks through the pages, and says, "England are doing well in the World Cup." Later, cryptic crossword completed. He puts his pencil on the table, turns to me. "You were my daughter the day you were born, and you're still my daughter." So yeah. So anyway, this one is called Manana Heron, and Manana Heron, for those of you who don't know any Irish, is the Irish or Gaelic for women of Ireland. And it's basically about the joy of making love with a woman. And I wrote this, I suppose, maybe 3 or 4 months after my first sexual experience with a woman. So it's full of the joys of making love with a woman. And actually, it's funny because a few men that have read this say, I can really relate to that too, as a man having sex with a woman. So it's kind of, you know, crosses both types of relationships. Anyway, here we go. Manana Heron. To die not having known the frenzy of making love with a woman is to live without ever jumping over the bar of your crib. How could you not want to watch a woman fling her underwear on your bedroom floor, present you with soft skin for your nails and teeth to score like blades on dough? How could you not want to feel your edges slip into her hollows, like a spoon folding flour into cake batter? How could you not want to hear her whimper, crescendo to a jungle roar, while your fingers move inside her? How could you not want a denouement to your play, when secret stories leak onto ivory sheets, then tease tongues and start the sequel? How could you not want to drag a woman to bed at 7 on a Saturday evening, rise at 2 on Sunday afternoon, sleep deprived and smelling like a marathon runner, race outside to tackle weedy flower beds, gleeful that soil will not rest in your clipped fingernails?
There you have it.
That's mild.
Think about, so you also write fiction.
That's right.
And you have your short story collection, which was published there by Blue Nib, am I right?
That's right,
yeah.
Last September.
And can I ask you, how does a short story come to you?
How does a short story come to me? It's basically a character. Sometimes people ask me, well, what's the theme of that story, Anne, or what were you what was your point? I said, well, I don't kind of write deliberately on a theme. I just characters just come to my head, and I just they start telling me their story. And these are the really good ones. Now, the really good ones just kind of like you're kind of like, I feel like I'm sitting at the laptop and I have to actually use the laptop when the voice. Some poetry usually start off with my pen and paper, but when a character comes to me and he's talking so fast, I have to use the laptop because otherwise I'll miss it. So it's literally like I'm the secretary and I'm just taking down the words that this character is telling me. Now that's the really good. That's the really, like, that's the good stuff. That's when you're in that zone. It doesn't always happen like that, unfortunately, but that's when you're really in the flow. It's just like this guy starts talking to you, or this woman, and you just kind of write their story. So yeah, it's just the characters. Sometimes now it's just kind of, maybe it might be more, you'll have an idea of a character in your head about, and you kind of think, okay, well, what will I do with this guy? What kind of a situation am I going to put him into? What challenge am I going to give him? What's the conflict going to be? And who is he? What age is he? Does he have brothers? What's his what his family background? Is he married? Whatever else. So sometimes you kind of do have to, the character comes and you have to kind of say, okay, what am I going to throw? Because you have to throw something at him, because otherwise it's not going to be a story that anybody will read. So you have to throw something at the character. There has to be some conflict, whether it's internal conflict in himself or herself, or whether it's something external. But you have to throw something at them.
Yeah.
So so there's two types basically. There's the ones that just come to you and it's just flow. It's just you're the secretary. And then there's the other ones that kind of, you have a character and you want to do something with the character. Mm-hmm. Does that answer the question?
Yeah. And in terms of like technique, or do you write unconsciously more so, or do you edit stylistically, or what's your method?
What's my method?
Yeah. Do you have one?
It varies. I think I write. I want to enjoy my writing. I don't want it ever to become a purgatory, or like, oh God, I have to write this today, or I have to write 3,000 words by the end of the week. That's not, I can't do that, because it's just, for me, it's enjoyment. It's never going to pay the bills. That's fine. That's not why I do it. So usually it's just an idea comes and I just start writing. Sometimes it writes itself. There's no need for me to do anything. That's all I have to do is write. Other times, I might have to have a framework or an idea as to where the story is going, or, how is it going to end. But really the first thing I do is write it out. And once the first draft is out, because as you know, the first draft is always rubbish, unless you're very, 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 very lucky. So then it's just writing it. And once it's written, then, now ideally, it's good to put something away for a week and come back to it then, but I have never got the patience to do that. So I just go, so just go back over it then, yeah, and just maybe tidy up the sentences, and then you kind of have to look and think, okay, is the arc clear enough here? How has the character changed from the start of the story to the end of the story? Is it believable? Is the ending satisfactory? What's the opening line like? Are you grabbing the reader straight away? The title can change 10, 20 times before the story is actually released, because title is so important. And usually kind of you might start off with a title. It might be the title might be the character, the name of the character, just to get you going. So yes, looking at the title, is the title working? Is it adding to the story? Is it taking away to the story? Is it a case that someone is not going to read that story because it's a shite title? For example, the story now in one of the stories in my short story collection, it started off, the first title, I can't remember the first title, but the title I'd kind of settled on was Poisoned. But it wasn't me telling you anything. So I went back and then I called it Demise of the Undertaker's Wife. Like, which would you prefer to read now? A story called Poisoned or a story called Demise of the Undertaker's Wife? Like, you know, what's going to grab you? Hopefully Demise of the Undertaker's Wife will grab you.
Poisoned. No,
but so yeah, so it's it's a challenge for any writer to step back, because you produce this baby onto the page and it's naked and it's gorgeous and it's slimy and it's bloody, and you think, oh, this is lovely, you know, everybody's going to love to read this. And think, no, hang on, Anne, you have to dress it up now. You know, you have to clean it first and feed it and put some clothes on it before you can show anybody. So that's what you're doing. Like you just have to kind of pull back and ideally get as many people as possible, people that you trust, to look at it and give you critique, not friends or partners or children, but you know, people who can be objective about it and who will give you feedback, good feedback on it. And then you take that away and you decide what you're going to take on board and what you're not going to take on board, because it's your story at the end of the day, nobody else's. So yeah, so the editing is as important as the getting it onto the page. And I actually like editing too. I do, yeah. I like both. You have to like editing, yeah. You know, because otherwise, you know. So I like that process too of going back. And actually, I love editing poems more so, because poems are so nice and short. And really, with a poem, what you're looking at is you're looking at, well, should I take de out there? Should I put and in there? Should there be a comma here? Should there be a full stop here? Should I use a different word than blue or whatever else? You know, so it's kind of easier, you know, because they can be small. But the short story editing is more challenging, because it's, you know, it's a longer piece, and there's a lot. Like, there's not just, it's not just the characters and the arc. Then you have to go down to the paragraph, and you have to go down to the sentence, and you know, have I too much adjectives in here, or too many adverbs? How can I say that as economically as possible? And yet you don't want to polish it. There comes a stage in the process that you can over polish. So there's that delicate balance that you have to reach between it being in the state that does the characters justice, but yet it's readable and it's polished, but yet not to over polish, because sometimes you can do that. Particularly some of my stories, they tend to be kind of told in the vernacular, like Irish people who have terrible grammar. So you have to be careful there, because you can't edit it too much, because then you're going to lose the voice or lose the rawness. So yeah, it's just that balance between not editing it enough and then doing too much to it, you know, and just stepping back.
I think that's really evident in your work, Anne. Speaking of which, would you care to read us an extract from one of your short stories?
Sure, I'll read the first bit of Demise of the Undertaker's Wife, which I mentioned already. So, and just kind of, to give you an idea of how open I encourage people to be when they're writing, and to think outside the box, because this particular story, short story, I wrote it first as a short story, and then there was a short play festival being held here in Mayo a couple of years back, and I went back to it again and thought, God, that'd make a nice play. So I actually wrote a short play out of the short story. Now it kind of took a different life of its own, and it went off a bit on a different tangent than the short story did. But I suppose I'm saying that because it's great to experiment with your writing and not maybe confine yourself to one genre, to see how things can cross over. But anyway, that's totally off the point, really. So I'm just going to read the first page and a half of it. This is called Demise of the Undertaker's Wife, and it's set in a funeral home in the west of Ireland. And it's the Undertaker's the person who's speaking. He looked very solemn in death. Not at all like the Jack that would be in the pub on a Saturday night buying drink for half the country. I had a fierce job getting his eyes to stay shut. And as for his gaping mouth, I thought I'd have to put super glue on his lips. It was hard to see a man I went to school with in one of my coffins, even if he had spent all of sixth class kicking me under the desk when the teacher wasn't looking. Hard to believe that was 50 years ago now. If we knew when we were young lads how our lives would turn out, would we have bothered at all? That's what I was thinking when I was talking to Jack's father the day before the funeral. Will you take cash? He said, hunching his shoulders and looking at the oak coffin I'd just shown him. I had to think for a minute before I answered. Most people don't talk about pain until after the funeral is over. No need to worry about that yet, I said. I was keeping the money for my own funeral, he said, for Jack to bury me. What was the man above thinking when he took him first? I rubbed my hand along the coffin's lid, not knowing quite how to answer that question. Sorry, I've nothing smaller. I'll have some on Friday if you want to wait. Ah, no, it's perfect size, he says. Perfect, I said, thinking of Jack's scrawny body. Yeah, Julius and Caesar will fit in nicely, one on each side of him. I lifted my hand off the coffin and leaned towards them, expecting to get the smell of whiskey off his breath. Poisoned they were. Jack was awful depressed after he found them dead in the field at the back of the house the day before he died. But he always said he wanted his dogs buried with him. I've had some requests in my years at this job, but I have to tell you, this bet them all, hands down. And put the lid on the coffin for the wake. Can't have the neighbours looking at him. Jack's face had hit concrete when he fell, or jumped. Not sure exactly, and it's not something I'd ask his father. But I've done my best to make him look presentable. You won't charge me extra for the dead dogs, he said. God, no. Thanks. I don't care what to say about you, but you're a decent skin. You know Jack's heart wasn't able for what he was at. That ghost estate on the edge of town killed him. There was no way he was ever going to sell those houses. His words fell into an angry silence as he struggled to keep his hard men's face from cracking. A tear sneaked out and hung off the cliff of his cheekbone, but I knew better than to touch him.
Great.
Dun, dun, dun. And what happens after that? But yeah.
They'll just have to buy the book to find out.
Buy the book to find out.
Great, thanks for that, Anne. Just to let everybody know that you can buy Anne's books from her website directly on annewalshdonnelly.com. And if you need that address, I can give it to you in the chat.
I just say one thing. I'd really just thank you so much, Derville, for having me, and really enjoyed tonight and talking to everybody. So just thank you so much. It was great.
Oh, thank you. The silent, isolated clap. Yeah, we hear you loud and clear. Well, thank you so much, Anne, and we wish you all the very best with your next project, and keep in touch with us, and anytime you publish anything new or whatever, let us know. And we're really thankful. And thank you everyone for coming. I had a brilliant night. I hope you did too. Okay.
Thanks.
See you now. Bye-bye. Cheers.
Bye.